Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Всем привет!
Всем салют. My name is Alan.
Я Сергей.
I'm Andrew.
Oh, you got it. and это канал Торопых.
Самое червячное шоу о марихуане.
Yes, guys. So we're gonna jump on English right now. And right now we're on the production facility of Earth from Castings. The very great place, very nice facility, very cozy facility. To be honest, I want to stay here like probably for forever. With Andrew, and Andrew is actually the professional of the vermicomposting, right?
Yep.
For Earth from Castings.
Yep.
Since we jumped to the growing on organic grow, right? We figured out that pretty much, I don't know, I think all the recipes, all the famous recipes of the living soil and no-till soil especially,
Okay.
in the base, in the foundation, has an earth from castings. Our recipe called Clackamas-Coutts recipe, and 30% of the base is earth from castings. The question is very simple. Why? Why earth from castings? Why it's so important?
Worms are like the backbone of nature. Since the beginning of time, anything that has lived and died is processed by worms. So the nutrients that they create is all for the plants, right? It's like a cycle. Something grows, it lives, it dies, the worms eat it, and they fertilize the soil. The nutrients that are in the worm castings, for cannabis in particular, is what the plant needs. If you have worms in your soil, they create air pockets, they let the water go down, it lets the root go down that tunnel and get the nutrients from the worm castings. It benefits the plant in every way.
That's funny that you said that, because I remember I saw the quote by Charles Darwin: out of all the creatures on the planet, probably the most important creatures are earthworms.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, and throughout the last 100 years, everybody's been killing them off, either tilling your soil, using synthetic salts, all kinds of synthetic things are killing our worms. So we're not getting the aeration in the soil. That's why we have to till.
Yeah.
You cut your grass and you pick up all the grass because it looks nice.
Yeah.
But you're not feeding the soil with any organic matter. So there's no worms there. The worms will go where there's decomposing organic matter. So if you're always keeping your yard super clean, well, then you kind of have to add synthetics to keep it nice and green. Adding the worm castings to your soil, it's everything you need. It's everything a plant wants. Each worm castings is actually, think about it like you take Tylenol.
Yeah.
And it gives you medicine for 8 hours. So the worm castings also have a slow release capability. So each worm castings is sealed. So the root will pick in that one and grab its nutrients, and it'll give a slow release to your soil. So you always have it.
How long you will be selling the...
How long have we been here?
Like, in this business, yeah.
Okay, so man, I've been probably playing with worms when I was fishing as a kid there, but maybe 17 years ago. I have 4 kids. The city sent us a letter saying we're only picking up garbage every 2 weeks. And I had 4 young kids, and garbage recycling was overflowing. I was bringing garbage to my dad's, like, hey. Anyways, I saw a little bit on YouTube, and everything I do is bigger, right? Like everything here I built. And so I built a 2 feet by 4 feet bin. And once it was up and rolling there, I had maybe a half a garbage, no more recycling. So I had a problem. The worms were the solution. I wasn't a gardener. Then I ended up with this bin full, right? Like, what do I do with this, right? And so I started my first garden, and my grandmother, who's been gardening her whole life, walked by and said, wow, look at your garden, so my garden looked perfect just with my home castings without adding all kinds of stuff. No bug spray, no insecticides, no extra things, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. So then we continued gardening, continued the worm thing. I've thrown hats baseball caps in my worm bin, and only the metal pin came out. Old underwear, only the little elastic came out. You get used to it, you know. You could have one in the back corner of your yard and just throw everything in there. Who cares, and not worry about it. Like, it rains, so they won't run out of moisture. The food has moisture. You know, they're easy to take care of. And by having that problem with the garbage, came with a solution. And then I don't know, a couple of years ago, me and my partner got together and we said, hey, let's open this up. Weed was becoming legal in Canada.
Yeah.
Timing was perfect, you know. We had extra time, and
all this stuff were made by you, by your own hands.
Yeah.
Even the facility.
And, the whole building, the screener, the wood tables over there.
Wow.
This motor system, me and my dad came up with, actually, because we had the plans for the table, but not how to get the blade that's cutting through here.
Okay.
How to get it to work, right? So we came up with that system. We turn it on, and then we hit the button, but I can't right now.
Yeah.
But so that'll pull the 4-foot blade across the whole table. So it's like a chunk of mud, right? And then we're passing the blade an inch at the bottom of the chunk of mud. Yeah. So it loosens it, right? And because that 1 inch is no longer attached to the chunk of mud, the weight of the chunk of mud will push that 1 inch through the screen that's underneath.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I got it. Yeah.
So from there, we'll rake it out from under the table, and we'll pick it up with the tractor. We'll put it in our conveyor, and then we'll screen it.
You know what we figured as well? Because we're following different bloggers who's growing who's using different strategies for grow, right? And we start figuring out, because like, let's say 20 years ago, people were like so hyped by like hydroponic and stuff, you know, because like you just add it, you calculate it, you put the pH meter, you put like some, I don't know, EC meter, you see how much plant needs, and then the plant is growing. But as far as I see right now, the organic strategy of growing is actually booming. It's some sort of trend.
A lot of people say the taste is different. The smell is different. The smoke is different. You could taste the terpenes better. Yeah. So let's say you didn't have worm castings. You'd look at your plant in the veg cycle and you're like, it needs something. Yes. Right? So then you'd find a product, you'd try it, and then it would grow and it would tell you something else. So then, oh no, maybe I gave too much. And then you could grab another product to kind of even it out, right? So worm castings is more or less a neutral pH. Yeah. Right? So you can't give too much. You could grab a whole 20-pound bag there and just give it to the plant, and it'll take what it wants when it wants. And because it has everything it needs in the worm castings, it won't show you any deficiencies. Even in hydroponic grows, you can add worm castings, right? You could make a tea. You could feed your plant the same biology in a liquid form. We actually have a guy that's doing a DWC, like a 5-gallon pail. Yeah, deep water culture. And instead of brewing a tea with our tea bags, he's putting a tea bag in the aerated water, and he changes that tea bag once a week. So the plant is getting the nutrients regularly when it wants it. Yeah. And the plant is doing fantastic. We use a mixture of different manures so that our product has multiple different nutrients. And we mix it in at our secret recipe, the ratio, and we'll feed it to the worms. So it'll go through their gut and come out with different types of nutrients, but all at a pH neutral balance, not to hurt the plant.
What is the best food for the earthworms? The best, what they like the most? At least your earthworms.
Okay, so they absolutely love avocados. They like
fancy.
They like melons. My favorite that I like giving them is pumpkins. Pumpkins. It's sweet a little bit, you know. It breaks down really fast, and they absolutely love the skin, right? So avocado, watermelon, all that stuff. Because of the skin, it hides the light, right? So there's no light. And they'll bunch up in there, you know? So they're hidden from the light, full of food. And then like those pieces of fruit or vegetables, when you lift it up, you know, it's a nice cup, it's a bowl. And then you'll be like, whoa, like they're all there, you know, like it's a party, you know? But things that break down fast, you'll see them like it, right? So that's like their favorite foods, but they need slow breaking down things to compensate. You
You
know?
pretty much answered the question of one of our subscribers. He asked, what about like mono feeding? But you
Only
already
the same
kind of
thing?
like always the same thing, giving them always the same thing.
It works.
It works.
We do it, right? It's our mixture
Yeah.
that we always feed them, right? It does work. It depends what kind of nutrients you want to give to your plants.
Yes.
Like if you only want to feed strawberries, you're getting the benefits of the worms eating, breaking down strawberries.
Strawberries, yeah.
But if you mix it up, maybe you'll get more, like us with the manures. We're not only going to give one manure, we want multiple biologies, systems, nutrients. So, you know, mixing it up. It's like, think of it as your body. You know what I mean? Like, I could probably live off steak every day.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you know, a
something
fruit
else.
is nice too, you
Yeah.
know? We'll get the freshest manures of
Okay.
the animals that we need, as fresh as we can. We'll do our own mix. We'll hot compost it outside, and then we'll bring it in and we'll feed it to the worms when it's ready.
I understand it's a secret, but briefly, in few words, what is the best manure for the compost? You would say.
Well, there's no best manure. Multiple manures are better,
Multiple manures,
right? So that's what we're trying to create.
Can you name a couple of them?
Horse.
Horse manure.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. Horse is kind of easy to work with. The smell's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's not very soupy, wet, hard to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, the carbon nitrogen ratio of the horse manure, once composted, is similar to their ideal environment. So it's easy to work with.
How difficult it is, because like usually when we deal with the earthworms, that only when we are fishing. For us, it's just the food for the fish, right?
Yeah.
Because we usually, like regular human beings, we don't really like,
Nobody wants to touch them.
like, yeah, they kind of like yuck, you know?
Yeah.
But how difficult it is to actually like taking care of them.
It's actually very simple. We have compost worms, red wigglers. It's not the same worms that you'll find when it rains in your driveway. Most big fat worms that you use to fish are Canadian night crawlers or big worms that stay really deep in the soil. Our worms are very small, very fast metabolisms, and they stay in the top 6 inches. For you to raise worms at home, let's say you had a bin, you want a carbon to nitrogen ratio about 40 to 1. So you want 40 brown
Okay.
to 1 green. That's the mixture that you're looking for. So if you had a bin and you had worms at your house, you'd want to mix up a whole bunch of cardboard, newspaper, dead leaves in the fall, anything that's brown, a lot of it. And then you would feed a little bit of green, grass clippings, lettuce, tomatoes, whatever, right? Starting off, sounds hard and complicated, but as soon as you look at your bin, you get the feel for it very quick.
Yeah.
Well, I'm feeding too much. A bin inside your house with worms should not smell. The worms actually don't eat the food that you're putting. The worms will eat the bacteria that builds on the food. If you have a piece of lettuce and it's decomposing, it'll be covered with bacteria, okay? And the worms will eat the bacteria. So the more surface area you have, the more bacteria builds on it. And what smells is the overpopulation of bacteria. It smells anaerobic. But if you have worms in your compost pile or your bin, the worms will eat the bacteria. And as they eat the bacteria, a new bacteria will form in the spot where it ate, and the worms will eat it again. So it never has time to smell. And the faster the bacteria builds on it and is eaten and builds on it again, the faster it decomposes. So like a banana peel in one of my bins, 24 hours, it disappeared.
As far as I understand, like the worms are right there, right now,
Yeah.
and this is the actual bin.
Yeah. Right now it's a little rocky because
Yeah.
we put our unprocessed material back in the table so that we keep composting, right? So here, actually, you're on a better side there. See, it's flatter here,
Yeah.
right? Than rocky.
Yes.
Right. So if you could dig here somehow, for sure we'll find
Oh
something,
yeah, I see.
you know?
Oh my God, that's the guys.
So that's a red wiggler.
Yeah. Wow.
And you see he has a little ring here.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to turn him over. Come on. You see he has a, I don't know if you could see that good. There's a little ring around him.
Mm-hmm.
That ring tells me he's an adult and he could breed. So see, this one has a ring too, but it's not swollen. I don't know how to say it. You'll see sometimes they get really fat. That means they're ready to drop an egg.
Oh, okay.
And these two rings that we're talking about, let's say they would go by each other, they would tangle themselves up, and that's how they would fertilize their cocoons.
So this is the size of the adult worm, right?
Yeah. Can you get them bigger? Yes. You could feed them more grain, more starch, right? Just like me and you.
Yeah.
And you could get them to be fatter, bigger, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll process more food.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So when you buy worms, some people like to see big fat worms, right?
But it's better to have more worms.
Well, that's the thing. It's nice to have nice big fat worms, but then you put them in your bin and they get all small again, and you're like, hey, what happened, right?
Yeah.
So some people will fatten up their worms before they sell because they sell by the pound.
Oh,
Right?
that's the trick.
So it's about 1,000 worms per pound. But let's say us, we don't do it a lot. We will do a little bit of grain and just see what happens there. But so when we sell worms, you're getting really small worms, but they're adult worms, but you might be getting 1,500 worms. It's still a pound.
Yeah.
It's just they weren't artificially fattened.
Can you approximately say how many pounds of earthworms in here?
0, because they're not earthworms.
I mean, yeah.
So you do 32 feet long
Okay.
by 4 feet. So you're at 128. So
Okay.
there's at least 128 pounds. So 1,000 worms per pound minimum. So there's at least 128,000 worms in this bin.
So you pretty much like you have this bedding, right? And to get the castings, you always adding a layer of the compost, right?
Yeah.
In here, right on the top.
Yeah. So we'll regularly feed like an inch,
Yeah.
right? Then when the table's full, we'll pass our cut-in bar underneath.
Okay.
Underneath, it's all a grill, right?
Okay.
So it'll cut an inch off
Uh-huh.
and drop an inch, and then we'll feed it an inch.
Uh-huh.
And harvest, feed, harvest, feed. So it's always like this, and my worms always stay in the top 6 inches, but the castings go to the bottom. I harvest, and then I'll feed on top.
How quick these guys are actually multiplying? Like, can they multiply forever? Can they get some critical mass?
Yeah, so they self-populate. So your bin is a foot by a foot. They would max out at about a pound a square foot. It could be more with optimal conditions, right? So it works by surface area. So if you have 32 feet long by 4 feet, and they will multiply at a pound a square foot. So if you have a bin at home that's 2 feet, then they'll multiply to 2 pounds. And they'll multiply, let's say every 3 months to be safe.
Are they hermaphrodite?
They are hermaphrodites.
Okay.
So each one could lay an egg. Once they're mature enough, which takes about a couple months, once they're mature enough, they'll slide up against each other and fertilize each other's eggs.
Oh, that's interesting.
So each worm could lay eggs. So that's how they're able to multiply so fast. They won't lay eggs if there's too much food. They won't, you know what I mean? If they feel they're dying, they might lay some eggs. If they feel that it's freezing and they're about to be frozen, they're gonna lay some eggs. So they self-populate, right? So if you have an outdoor bin and you threw everything outside, they would die over the winter, and then in spring with the moisture, all the eggs would hatch and you'd be fine.
Oh, what is this room?
Well, this is where we breed worms. See, these are different worms.
What means breeding worms?
Getting them to, fuck.
Ah, so that's where they fuck. Oh, this is the sex room. Okay.
So these worms are a bit different. These are Euros. They're a bit fatter. You know what I mean? But anyways, here's a cocoon.
Oh, okay.
You see that?
How much time it takes from cocoon to this?
To adult, so 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. See how yellow this one is?
Yes, yeah.
And the other one was darker. So this is freshly laid. You know what I mean? Like it's newer. And then when it gets dark like that other one, if you're really patient and find it again, the darker red it is, the more it's ready to hatch. So you could actually take a dark red cocoon and squeeze it and watch them come out. Grab it with your fingers, and you know there's a point on the cocoon. Try to find the point, and then if you squeeze it lightly, and you might get a worm to come out of there.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm just scared to damage you.
But it's not going to squirt you in the eye. There's not enough juice in there. Don't be afraid.
Okay. Okay, let me pop it. So should I pop it?
Well, you should.
Oh, yeah.
See? So he might be a little premature, but you're a dad. What are you calling it? You got to give him a name.
Oh my God, I'm gonna give you the name, Alan.
Alan, there you go, man.
But we will stay alive though.
Yeah, well,
It will survive. Or not.
It doesn't like the light and needs some food. But but what you film it and you put it back in, it will stay alive.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, you guys just saw the moment of life right now.
The birth of Alan.
The birth of Alan.
Oh, look at this. See, they're tied up.
Oh, look, they're having
These
love
ones are
here.
mating. These ones are mating.
So right now they're having.
Yeah, they're tied up
sex
together.
pretty much.
You couldn't pull them apart.
No, leave them alone. Come on. You don't like when somebody disturbs you, right?
I got 4 kids. It happens all the time.
Let's say I was a very bad grower, right? And I left my bedding without any attention and stuff. And I forgot about them. They all die. But for sure, there are some cocoons.
Yeah.
For how long these cocoons can stay alive? What's gonna happen to them if it's gonna be too cold or too warm or too dry?
Okay, so I don't know the exact answer, but I think that those cocoons could live a really, really long time, years and years and years. So a cocoon will need a perfect environment in order to hatch. It needs the right moisture, it needs the right kind of acidity in the soil, you know, and then they'll hatch. If the worms think they're dying, right, there's no more water and they're unable to leave the bin or whatever, they're gonna die out, but before they're gonna drop cocoons everywhere, or it's too cold, freezing's coming, you know, so they'll repopulate their thing. They'll all die. And then in the spring or when there's food or water, the cocoons will hatch.
Do you use like just regular worms taken from nature, or
No.
it's like special breed of worms?
They are in nature. You could find them in piles of horse manure, cow manures maybe. There's special worms that only feed off decomposing matter, and lots of it.
What are the best breeds of it? Like, I mean, what's the name of it?
Red wigglers.
Red wiggler?
The real name is Aceta fetida. To me, those are the best. Now, you could have other worms that do compost well. They're bigger, they're thicker, they're good for fishing. But the red wigglers are small. Like I say, you know, a small guy has a fast metabolism. Yeah. Hey, how come you could eat candy and
Yes, yeah.
I'm getting fat looking at you? You know what I mean? It's the same thing with the worms, right? So they're small, they wiggle, red wigglers. Well, these are cocoons that were hatching. And these ones were adult ones making cocoons, yeah.
Euro is the breed name.
Yeah, European night crawlers. Yeah.
I saw some interesting strategies when the guys actually were adding, instead of earthworm castings, they're actually adding some earthworms to the bedding
Okay.
instead of the castings. What do you think? Is it gonna work? Because lots of people are, especially of our subscribers, asking a question. So guys, we growing plants, there are roots, which technically means if the earthworms over there like keep wiggling and stuff, right? So it might damage the roots.
No.
Is it actually? Are they gonna damage the roots?
No, it's actually fantastic to have worms. So my grandmother,
Yeah.
who had a big garden, always said, if you have worms in your garden, you have a healthy garden. So you have a plant that's growing, it's building roots, it's taking up space in your pot. That root that went over here to get water,
Yeah.
now there's no more water here because you forgot to water. But there's water over here, but here there's no more water. So what happens is that root will die, right? And then that root will uptake an infection or a disease, right? And then it'll show on your leaves saying, hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
or there's no water or whatever, okay? So what happens is that root that went to get the water here or nutrients or whatever that died, if you have worms in your soil, it'll actually eat up the root before it'll absorb an infection or a disease. The worms are continuously protecting that plant, and roots break down really fast. So worms could get at it quite a bit, right? So if you have them in your grow pot or your no-till, you're helping the system so much. People who say add worms instead of worm castings, it depends where you're at in your system, right? If you're starting out, I would put worm castings and worms. But if your system's been rolling for a while, you can add castings on top as top dressing, and the water will bring the nutrients down. But you can't add under, right? So your worms will do that for you. But in your no-till, you have to continuously feed your no-till if you have worms, right? So either you're putting food in a corner, either you're cutting your cover crop, but you're not removing the cover crop like the grass in your yard. You're leaving it there. It breaks down. The worms will eat it. They'll aerate. They'll poo everywhere in your garden, and they'll keep your plants healthy.
So they will not touch the healthy root. They will touch it, or they will start eating it only if it's decomposing already.
They only eat what has lived and died. Nothing that's living.
So I see, for example, that my plants are have a little lack of, let's say, calcium. Right? So, which technically means the calcium I have in my bedding is like not really bioavailable. So can I say that I just can give this particular mineral to my earthworms? They digest it, they bringing it inside the soil, and it becomes bioavailable. So can I use this strategy like that? So
it sounds really good. That's a good question. Listen, like let's say you're missing calcium and you want to add eggshells. Are the worms going to eat the eggshells? Yes, eventually. It's probably, it's what we do. Like, let's say with eggshells, we'll grind it down to a powder, right? So the worms will actually ingest it and use it as a grit, like they would sand or eggshells, and that grit will go in their system and kind of clean them out. Okay, so they're eating. Sometimes they need a little grit that'll go through their body, right? I think, let's say for calcium, the eggshell powders, I don't think it changes the calcium, but it really does help the worms thrive, right? It's like emptying your system. I'm hungry again. You know what I mean? So feeding them something you think is missing,
to make
eventually they'll get to it. But like calcium is really hard shell for them to break down. So in a powdered form, yes. And even the powdered form, like it's rock hard, right?
Because in general, like in no-till strategy, you kind of have to think a little bit in advance. You're thinking about next cycle, and usually no-till beddings are actually getting better in the next cycle than it's
because whatever organic matter you're putting it in is not breaking down instantaneously, and you'll only see your plant react 2 weeks later. You know what I mean? We do food for the worms too. There's probably one bin there. So we sterilize the eggshells because you know you need calcium there. So we'll grind this down to a powder. Sometimes we'll give it to the tables there, but we mix like a worm chow. So we put everything for you to feed your worms if you're not feeding them. The worm food, if you're growing in an indoor tent, right? You might not want to put an apple and then attract bugs in your tent. Right? So this is like a dry food with a little bit of everything they like, so that you could continue and feed your worms in the pot for them not to leave your pot, right? And you're not implementing any bugs in your tent. You know what I mean? So it's like a dry form of multiple different things. So it's going to add some calcium to your soil. It's going to add...
So the casting in these bags is not like pasteurized or sterilized. It's just like...
So we'll get our manure. We have our process to, like when we get manure, we'll kill all the weeds, the seeds, the bad pathogens, everything by hot composting.
So before you put worms in there.
Oh yeah.
So you like sterilize it.
That's our sterilization.
But then the final
process.
product, the casting,
Yeah.
do you sterilize or pasteurize it? No. Is it safe in terms of contamination or?
Super safe, as organic as it could possibly be, right? Because they only eat living, dying things. Yeah, so after our process of killing everything that's in there, we hot compost it so it generates heat.
Yeah.
And we talked before, what generates heat is the building bacteria on decomposing matter. So we'll take it after a couple weeks of heating it up, we'll turn the pile, we'll make sure that it hits 190 Fahrenheit, which is terribly hot. And then anyways, outside we'll pre-screen it, and then we'll feed the worms when it still has some heat, loaded with bacteria, right? Which is what the worms want. And then what processes through their gut, because it comes out in pH neutral, it's not sterilized, because sterilized you wouldn't have anything good in, like, you know, if I took the worm castings and then heated it up somehow or did something, I'm actually killing all the living biology that's in that soil. So like we were saying before, you want it to be kind of light and fluffy, but it needs moisture, right? So if you grab it, you know, you could squeeze it and then you'll have a clump, right? And then if you break it back up, it kind of just goes back to its original state. You know?
Yeah, and I can actually feel the granules still.
You know what I mean? So when you grab it and then you let go, it's nice to not have messy, muddy hands, you know, when you're working in the garden. But you could smell it though. It smells like walking in the woods.
Yes, you're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right. It's not even like, it doesn't even smell like a soil. It's actually smell like you're in a forest.
Yeah. It's easy to mix in your soil, right? So you know when you're going like that, it's not all big clumps, making it a lot of nutrients over there. You know, it's so easy to blend into your soil that whether you're top dressing it, mixing it, or just you dig your hole for your plant, you know, and then you put a handful in the bottom, put your plant on top. Because the plant has everything it needs, it doesn't have the stress of a transplant. You know, you transplant and then it doesn't look good, your plant, for a little bit. But if it has everything it needs in the bottom of your borehole, you're good to go. So we do as good as we can with our screener to remove all imperfections, right? But like, you know, some little pieces of wood will go through. But even then, that piece of wood is soaked with all the same nutrients, right?
If somebody like me and Sergey mixed the soil with a bunch of earth from castings, left it over there for like 3 months instead of putting in a bedding, don't put any moisture, most likely most of the benefits of earth from castings
That's what you did? Oh yeah.
Not all. I mean, it's still moist, has moisture inside it, right? But the top layer probably are kind of dead.
You mix it in. It's the non-living worm castings is now like humus in your soil, right? It'll help as a fluffer or something, but like you're not buying worm castings for the NPK value. You're buying worm castings for its living nutrients, its biology, its you know what I mean? So you got to keep that moist. Everything's a small ecosystem, right? Your worm bin at home, your body, your no-till thing, right? So like, you know, we all need moisture, we all need food, we all need you know.
So our task is always keep the perfect conditions, so it's always alive.
Yes. Sounds really hard. It's not.
I have a weird question.
Shoot.
There is popular belief that if you split the worm in half, both half will stay alive. Is
It's
it
actually
true?
a good question.
Or no?
I don't believe it.
No?
No.
Because
I don't believe
I
it.
always was thinking, because one half will have like months, other half will have
ass.
ass.
It doesn't regrow a mouth. Not like a, what is it, a rat tail or something like that? Yeah, no.
But it will be alive for a while.
It'll wiggle.
It just
But
will.
but it's not gonna make
It's
it.
done.
No. Yeah, for sure. Good question.
As we talked before, that like we were talking about, we actually mentioned it, that this, in general, compost worm castings, right? We're gonna start calling it like that. Is still not very like regular, and not very like, how to say it, common way to nutrient your plants and your garden and stuff. What about this type of business in general?
In the US, There's a lot of people doing it. It sounds easy. It's not all that easy. Like I said, education to the people should be its own business because it's so complicated, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But listen, it's a nice business to have. You need a food source. You need some worms. You need room. We're close to Montreal, so it's cold. So we need heat. In the summer, we need air conditioning. And we got to keep the worms happy, right? But it's a nice little business, and we're composting. It's not going to landfill or anything like that, and people like it,
Well, you know what? Right now I want, after all these conversations, first of all, I want some worms for my bin.
Yeah.
If you have some nice, fat ass, very active worms for me,
I do.
yeah, for my garden, I will definitely get it for you, and I will also get some castings as well.
Yeah, okay.
Honestly, thank you so much for this interview. It's a little bit more than interview. It's
Yeah,
I feel like
it's fun.
I'm pretty sure our subscribers also think the same. It's like some sort of like educational class right now, and I'm pretty sure some people after this episode might actually start thinking to breed their own compost worms.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Everybody should do it.
Yeah. Plus, guys, again, we live on the planet which is not endless. We're using sources. We're
giving
putting
back.
lots of shit in the air. We're polluting the soil. We're destroying the landfill and stuff. So this is the way to kind of like having a healthy relationship with the nature.
Yeah, it is for sure. Listen, I'm happy you guys came. I hope I taught somebody something. Composting's fun. Kids love it. Teaching your kids, the new generation, on how we could help our planet, and at the same time have a great crop, great yield, better food, just to reuse the stuff that you have at home. Teach your kids something, and happy growing, man.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
No, for sure.